What if Cain wasn't the first murderer, but the first chosen? Long before the stone struck Abel, there was a whisper. Long before blood touched the earth, there was a glance shared in darkness. And Cain saw something, or someone. The story we're told begins with jealousy. But what the ancient texts fail to mention is what Cain saw before it all began. In the field, in the silence, beneath the shadows of a cursed fig tree, he was not alone. Why does the Bible go silent when the scandal is too great? According to the manuscript of Arachiel, suppressed in the 4th century councils, Cain didn't just envy Abel. He heard voices, and one of them spoke, not as God, not as man, but as a twisted winged shadow of light that called him by name. Or what if the true sin wasn't murder, but listening? Tradition paints Cain as humanity's traitor, but the Ethiopian apocrypha whisper a different origin. In a redacted passage from the Book of Enoch, Lucifer appears at the edge of the altar, not to corrupt, but to offer a choice. And he didn't ask for a sacrifice. He asked for blood, willingly given. And in that moment, Cain understood. The altar was never meant for God. It was meant for something older. Why is Cain's name preserved? While his bloodline is erased, Cain hesitated. But as his hand touched the earth, the altar burned crimson. The ground shook, and the pact was sealed, not with words, but with the first drop of human blood spilled by choice. It was in that moment, according to Chaldean chronicles, that a new name was etched into the dark, marked by the pact, keeper of the first gate. But what Lucifer truly offered remains hidden, and what Abel truly represented may be the real reason for his eternal silence. Before he killed, Cain saw, but what he saw made him choose between heaven and the abyss, and he chose. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments. Not every mark is a punishment. Some are seals of a pact older than Eden, on soil still warm from Abel's blood. The earth didn't just swallow the body, it kept a secret. Yes, Cain fled, but not like a condemned man. He walked like someone carrying a hidden mission. The Bible says he was marked by God, so no one would kill him. But geez, what if that mark wasn't a curse, but a sacred seal from another entity? What if Cain's mark wasn't given by God, but accepted by him? In the forgotten scrolls of Nag Hammadi, a fragment speaks of a bloodline sealed by the light-bearer himself. In it, Cain is not seen as a sinner, but as the guardian of forbidden knowledge. Abel's blood fell as an unwilling offering, but Cain offered something far more dangerous, his free will. Why would a simple farmer speak to beings even prophets feared to name? The Gnostic traditions warn, not every fallen angel loses their light, and not every marked man is cursed. Lucifer didn't promise glory, he promised sight. Sight to see beyond the veil of offerings. Sight to uncover the Creator's forgotten designs. And Cain saw the tree, the fire, and what hovered over the earth before light was ever spoken. It was then, according to the Sumerian traditions of Kish, that a second entity appeared. Asuel, the whisperer of foundations. He didn't speak. He only touched the earth with the tip of his fingers, and there, a city was dreamed before it was built. Nod. Why would a murderer build humanity's first sacred city? Cain left, but before he did, he received a vision, not of the future, but of 7 marked generations, destined to protect the bloodline of that first pact. And the altar vanished, or was buried, or perhaps it still waits for the blood of a new chosen one. In the silence of the earth, something still pulses. The pact didn't end with Abel, it only began. If this spoke to you, like the video, and helped spread the message, what if the first city on earth was built to hide the altar of heaven? The Bible says Cain went to the land of Nod, but it doesn't say what Nod was, or what it was hiding. Among the forgotten scrolls of Babylonian tradition, there are accounts of a city built not from stone, but from symbols, symbols drawn in concentric circles. Cain, the cursed one, didn't run. He followed instructions, not written in words, but carved in the visions Lucifer gave him. What if the city of Nod was the first sanctuary of sanctified darkness? The Sumerian tablets call it Ennudu, the place where heaven touches the inverted earth. Nod became the first refuge for spiritual exiles, beings who walked between light and shadow. And there 7 altars were raised, each one dedicated to a form of ancient power. Blood, memory, silence, fire, shadows, time, and the last, the forbidden gaze. Why would a mere man lay the foundation of a cult older than religion itself? According to the Book of Secrets of Adramelech, an angel said to have defected before Lucifer's rebellion, Cain did not act alone. Around Nod, watchers appeared, beings in human form, with eyes made of ash. They didn't protect the city. They waited for something promised on that very first night, the return of the entity sealed beneath the roots of Eden. Among those watchers, one name is whispered in a suppressed Qumran text. Azaz Yahad, called the Keeper of the Crimson Silence. He spoke in extinct tongues. The blood of the righteous seals the beginning. The blood of the innocent shall seal the end. Who really taught Cain to build? And why? The world believed Nod was exile, but maybe Nod was an inverted beacon, not calling to the heavens, but to what fell from them. And as generations passed, Cain's bloodline grew quieter, as if they knew some names must never be spoken, and some pacts can never be broken. But the true secret of Nod wasn't the city itself. It was what was buried beneath it. Subscribe! What comes next is even darker. What if what we call hell was created to hide a secret, not to punish sinners? Beneath Nod, there was more than just soil. There was a circular structure, built from a type of stone found nowhere else in creation. According to the Gnostic writings from the Akhmim Codices library, Cain didn't just build altars, he sealed a chamber. At the heart of the city, beneath the 7th altar, the one of the forbidden gaze, was placed what the apocryphal texts call the Stone of Adamat. It's not rock, it's not metal, it's living matter, vibrating at a frequency no human ear can hear. And there, something was locked away. Why would a man seal something beneath the earth, unless he feared what might wake up? Persian legends speak of a lesser god, buried alive before mankind ever walked the earth, known only as Irkala-Ash, the one who hears even in absolute silence. But it was Cain who placed the stone upon him, not to destroy, but to wait, for another offering of blood to awaken him. What if hell isn't below, but merely at rest? For countless nights, the people of Nod heard sounds, whispers, pounding, and sometimes inverted prayers, as if the ground itself begged to be broken. In an Ethiopian scroll banned by Rome, there's a haunting line. Abel's blood was the first calling, but the cry remains unanswered, for the offering of the last has not yet come. Nod became a silent city, each generation more empty, more obedient, until a descendant of Cain was born, Irad, the one who dreamed of voices no one else could hear. And on a moonless night, he entered the chamber. The stone trembled, and the voice spoke to him. What lies beneath the earth that even heaven refuses to acknowledge? Irad was never seen again. But that year, something changed. The altars were buried, the city abandoned, and the records erased from biblical genealogies. But what was sealed beneath Nod didn't stay asleep. It awakened. What if Irad didn't vanish, but became the first priest of something even God never named? Share this with someone who needs to see what was buried. What if Cain's bloodline was never extinguished, but hidden among us, waiting for a new calling? Yes, Irad vanished, but not in time. In history, he was erased from genealogies, his name forbidden in chants. Yet in the secret traditions of the Black Essenes, a single phrase echoed in whispered tones. The first priest walks between days, but speaks only to those who bleed in silence. Why do Cain's generations vanish? Exactly when empires begin to rise. Irad was the first to hear the voice from the chamber without going mad. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He answered. And from the sealed stone, according to the lost fragments of Melchizedek, emerged an entity that didn't take form, but memory. It entered Irad like a whisper, and made him the first bearer of a knowledge not even Lucifer dared to touch. What if Lucifer was only the herald, but not the maker of the pact? What Irad received wasn't power, it was vision. Vision to read what's hidden beneath sacred letters, to see that between the verses lie gaps placed there on purpose. And so Irad wrote, on skin, in blood, on bones of beasts that vanished after the flood. These writings became the core of a secret cult, the sons of the Echo, nomads who wandered through early civilizations, carrying a mission to preserve the memory of the Pact until new blood awakens it. Why do some bloodlines disappear from records, yet reappear in the shadows of rising empires? In Sumer they were priests, in Egypt scribes, in Babylon magi, in ancient Rome the silent advisors of mad senators, always on the margins, always behind the scenes, carrying an ancient symbol, two overlapping circles, with a single bleeding point at the center. This was the seal of the Red Pact, and whenever it was drawn on temple walls, the chamber trembled, the stone pulsed, and the voice drew closer again. But the bloodline didn't end with Irad. It only changed its name and made its way to us. Have you ever wondered about this? Share your vision in the comments. What if the descendants of Cain walk among us, but have already forgotten who they are? They never stopped. The sons of the Echo, heirs to the Blood Pact, moved through civilizations like living absences. They weren't after power, but after something else. To keep the Pact alive, waiting for the second innocent blood. And what if Abel's sacrifice was only the first note in a symphony written in the void? Cain's bloodline didn't vanish. It was hidden on purpose. In ancient Rome, they infiltrated the Mithraic cults. On the Iberian Peninsula, they disguised themselves within pre-Christian rites of stone and fire. In Ethiopia, they buried their knowledge in desert manuscripts wrapped in lambskin, dyed deep crimson. According to the Codex Caruel, a cursed manuscript that vanished in the 9th century. Each generation carries a hidden mark, not on the body, but in dreams. Dreams of altars, of bleeding eyes, of cities in circles that fade at dawn. Why do so many dream of places that never existed, yet describe them identically across cultures? The symbol, two circles and a bleeding point, has been found carved into Incan temple ruins, etched on Egyptian sarcophagi, and even deep in forgotten Christian catacombs. Like a forbidden signature, but no one dared to speak its name. Because to name it is to awaken it, and the Pact still waits. Cain's lineage, unaware, became an unconscious instrument of what was sealed long ago. And from time to time, one of them awakens. They feel, they remember, and then they hear the calling. These awakened ones are not saints, not monsters either. They are echo bearers. They carry memories that aren't theirs, pain with no clear source, and a strange, irrational draw toward blood, not out of violence, but for the truth it hides. What if the answer to divine silence is written in the language we fear most, blood, not turned to dust, but the chamber beneath it is still alive, because the seal was never broken, only weakened. And now, in a world disconnected from its ancient symbols, the voice finds space in the voids of modern souls, in anxiety, in insomnia, in eyes staring into the dark at night and hearing something. What if you are a descendant of Cain, and the dreams that haunt you are memories of the Pact? Like this, if even one part made you feel uneasy. What if nightmares aren't warnings, but callings? Dreams don't lie, but not everyone can remember what they dream, because not everyone should remember. According to the Gospel of Seth, buried beneath the Saharan sands and recovered by silent nomads in the 13th century, there are people whose souls still carry the residue of Cain's pact. And these people see things, distorted reflections, symbols no one else notices, words they've never learned, yet somehow know how to speak. Why do certain people feel a guilt with no origin? This gospel speaks of the mirror of blood, an artifact described as a slab of polished, living stone that reflects not the face, but the ancestral essence of the one who stares into it. Before it, the awakened descendant doesn't see themselves. They see Cain, with black eyes, with trembling hands, and with a choice still left unfinished. What if Cain wasn't the executioner, but merely the instrument of something greater? During the Black Plague, there were reports of entire villages burning a strange symbol into their gates. 2 circles and a central bleeding point. They said those marked did not fall ill, but they also didn't sleep. They heard footsteps, children laughing in the dark, and whispers from a voice that said, "The offering is still missing, and the seal is cracking." Why does collective suffering attract revelations that times of peace keep hidden? The Codex Silens, lost in the fire of the Prague Library, claimed that in times of chaos, the world's blood calls out for balance. But balance is not peace, it's payment. And payment demands innocent blood. Abel was the first, but the second has not yet been given. That's why the bloodline keeps dreaming, keeps awakening, keeps preparing. And among them, one begins to see more than fragments. He begins to remember the altar, the chamber, the mark, and the voice, no longer whispering, but calling. What if the second blood is about to be spilled by someone who still believes they're free? Subscribe! The truth doesn't end here. What if the past never passed? It just changed its face. The second blood is near, and the chosen one is already listening. He doesn't know the name of the mark. He doesn't recognize the symbol. But within him echoes an ancient scream, a scream that never stopped, only hid itself in the flow of time. What if DNA is more than biological inheritance, but also spiritual memory? According to the treatise of the spiraled bloodlines, CC, text recovered from the secret Order of Solomon and sealed in Rome, some bloodlines carry hidden codes that don't belong just to the flesh, but to the memory of the blood itself. These codes don't trigger disease, they trigger awakening. And so, generation after generation, the marked continue to appear, not knowing why they see too much, feel too deeply, or dream of things they've never lived. Why is the suffering of the chosen always so deep and unexplainable? The second chosen is an ordinary man, or so he seems, but he's already dreamed of a blood-stained field, of a faceless brother, of a city made of stone circles. He's already seen the altar, even if he's never been near one. And lately, his skin burns when he touches certain words. Words like Nod, Adamat, Azaz Yakad, Irkalash. Words that make no sense, but that his soul remembers. What if you are closer to the origin than you think? And that's why everything around you is starting to fall apart. What he doesn't yet know is that the sons of the echo are watching him, not to stop him, but to guide him to the sleeping altar. They call him the bearer of the second silence. And they believe that once he gives his blood, not only will the seal be broken, but the nameless voice will speak for the very first time. Because what was buried beneath Nod wasn't a spirit. It was a living will, forgotten even before the creation of the human soul. And now it wants to return. But when the voice finally speaks, will it speak to him or through him? Tag someone who would dare to watch this. To the end. What if the true altar isn't made of stone, but of living flesh? He is awakening, but not like the others. While the sons of the echo watch in silence, the bearer of the second blood no longer dreams. He relives. The nightmares have become memories, the visions, instructions, and something within his body has begun to change. What if Cain's mark wasn't an external symbol, but a code burned into the flesh of the soul? According to the fragments of Dechel, sealed in the Aramaic catacombs beneath Arrakah, there comes a moment when the bearer of the pact feels the earth calling him, not through faith, but through response. His skin burns without fire, his tongue speaks forgotten names, and his blood, when it touches the ground, moves on its own. He no longer recognizes his reflection, because the face he sees is ancient, older than man itself. It's the gaze of Cain, before the stone, before the flight, before the curse. What if the second blood is needed not to open the seal, but to release what's trapped inside it? The nameless voice no longer whispers, it cries out. And every time the chosen steps onto sacred ground, churches, cemeteries, places where heaven once touched flesh, he feels fractures in reality. Clocks stop, lit candles extinguish, crosses turn, children cry without reason, and in the center of his chest, a pressure, as if something wants to break through. What if the seals were never locks, but living restraints made of obedient flesh. The pact was drawn in blood, but its fulfillment demands more: a body that remembers, and a soul that surrenders. And now the chosen one begins to surrender, not because he wants to, but because he was made for this. Because the blood of Abel cried out from the earth, but the second blood will answer with a voice, and that voice will not be human. But when that blood touches the altar, will it be the end of silence or the beginning of the end? If this disturbed you, that was the point. Leave a comment. What if what we call revelation is really just the end of forgetting? The altar has been found, not beneath the earth, not in Nod, but within the body of the chosen one. Because time passed, the stones crumbled, but the pact moved into the flesh. According to the silent verses of Irad, the true altar can never be destroyed, because it was born with the first blood, and it hides within every heir who breathes without knowing. The chosen has reached the final point, or perhaps the place where it all began. Before him, the seal awakens. The stone is no longer buried, it vibrates in his bones. The nameless voice speaks, but not with words. It speaks through sensations, through ancestral agony, through the absolute certainty that the world was built upon a forged silence. What if creation wasn't made to reveal, but to hide? The second blood is spilled, not in war, not for revenge, but in surrender. And in that moment, everything that was sealed knows it can emerge, because it wasn't Lucifer who fell. It was silence, and Cain's lineage was never cursed. It was guardian, but now the guardian has opened the gate, and what was beneath Nod is no longer there. Why does Genesis begin with light, but never tell us what came before it? The earth shakes, the sky falls silent, and in the middle of nothing a new name is whispered, by tongues that no longer exist. Enkaim, the third name. Not Cain, not Abel, something else. The fusion, the answer, the living pact, and whoever hears that name is never the same again. But if all of this is real, why are we still keeping our eyes shut? And if this is real, write your truth below.